Hello, my name is Charlotte Horling. This lecture is the third of 5 lectures on exhibition culture and collecting practices around the turn of the 20th century. During this time, the Joseon dynasty began to participate in World's Fairs, which were popular around this time. A World's Fair, also known as an international exposition or an expo, to use a contemporary term, is a large public exhibition designed to showcase the achievements of cultural heritage of nations from around the world. These fairs typically feature pavilions from participating countries, each displaying their unique contributions to various fields such as technology, industry, science, arts and culture. The first World's Fair, known as the Great Exhibition of 1851, was a landmark event that set the standard for future international expositions. Held in London in the UK, it showcased the technological and industrial achievements of the time and fostered international cooperation and cultural exchange. Over the course of the 19th century, World's Fairs were hosted by other nations, and they became an important means by which different countries showcased their so-called industrial progress and modern achievements. In this lecture, we will look at Korea's participation in World's Fairs in the late 19th century. By the 1880s, the Joseon government recognized the need for modernization, and it began to actively acquire knowledge about Western skills and modern institutions. As mentioned earlier, from a political and geographical viewpoint, Meiji Japan was the closest model from which to learn, and thus Japan came to play a dual role as both a facilitator of progress and an imperialist aggressor. Japan opened the first national industrial exhibition in Ueno Park in Tokyo in 1877. It was modeled after the Vienna International Exposition of 1873, which was the first international fair officially entered by the Meiji government. Japan's involvement in both exhibitions was aimed at creating a meeting place for Western technologies and their Japanese counterparts with the aim to promote local industry. When the second National Industrial Exposition opened in Tokyo in March 1881, it presented an ideal opportunity for Korea to observe Japan's modernizing changes, and in April the government dispatched a large delegation of 64 persons, including 12 officials. The so-called Korean Courtiers Observation Mission had to make detailed records of Japan's modern structures, from industrial facilities and communication systems to ministerial departments. They also examined the educational role of museums and industrial fairs. King Gojong took a keen interest in the mission to Japan and seems to have realized the advantages of participation in an international fair. Inclusion in a fair would enable Korea to introduce and promote itself within the international community. Outside East Asia, relatively little was known about the country, which was frequently referred to as the Hermit Kingdom. The term Hermit Kingdom was largely due to Korea's policy of isolationism, which for centuries had made contact with Western nations near to impossible. By participating in international events, Korea could challenge prevailing perceptions of it being isolated and unmodern, and more importantly, it could assert itself as an independent nation within East Asia. Therefore, Gojong agreed to fund a pavilion at the World's Columbian Exhibition in Chicago in 1893 to celebrate the 400th anniversary of the discovery of America. He was convinced that it would so-called strengthen and increase the friendship and relations between Korea and the United States, as he wrote in a letter to President Cleveland. The World's Columbian Exposition was a huge event for America. After 3 years of preparation and with costs of more than $28 million, the exposition opened to the public on May 1st. It was very popular during the 6 months it remained open and attracted more than 25 million visitors. 46 nations participated, and their displays were housed in the Manufacturers and Liberal Arts Building, the largest structure at the exposition. Approximately 25 tons of exhibits sent by Korea were displayed in a small structure designed to resemble traditional Korean architecture. Hubert Ho Bancroft, in his detailed account of the exposition, cited in the references, described it as a toy-like pavilion. The exhibit featured a wide array of mostly contemporary objects intended for royal use, which Bancroft believed showcased the customs and industries of this strange and isolated nation. Among the items were chessboards, tobacco boxes, silk garments, and embroidered screens. Notable highlights for visitors included a sedan chair, specimens of paper, and antique ceramics. The photograph of the pavilion, which you see here, was included in the official catalogue of the exposition, authored by Bancroft. The pavilion is so crammed full of things that it's difficult to clearly identify them all. In the right-hand side of this photograph, we can see the sedan chair positioned on the floor. Above the chair is a large fan, and to the right, hung below the rafters of the roof, is a royal banner. The Korean pavilion was met with curiosity as well as disdain. Unfortunately, the display did not achieve the desired impact in terms of representing the Joseon dynasty in a positive light as a politically and economically strong nation within East Asia. An article published in the New York Herald newspaper described the exhibits as a hastily knocked together, inexpensive collection of Korean junk. Rather, the pavilion confirmed the widespread belief that Korea was lacking in both arts and local produce, a view that continued to prevail among Westerners in years to come. But now let us turn to the Universal Exposition of 1900 in Paris, as this was the next time Joseon Korea participated in a world fair. This time the response from visitors was much more favorable, and seen from that standpoint, the display was therefore more successful. Unfortunately, the Universal Exposition of 1900 in Paris marked the last time Korea would participate as an independent nation, as Korea lost its rights as a sovereign power in 1905, when it was forced to sign the Japan-Korea Protectorate Treaty, also called the Ulsa Treaty. The treaty deprived Korea of its sovereign power, as it gave the Japanese Foreign Office full authority over all aspects of Korea's relations with foreign countries. It also allowed the appointment of a Japanese resident general in charge of Korea's foreign relations, a position that was ranked directly below Kojong and which Ito Hirobumi took up in 1905. The events leading up to 1905 significantly influenced Kojong's decision to participate in the Universal Exposition in Paris. Since the late 19th century, Russia and Japan had shown increasing political interest in the strategic potential of the Korean peninsula. In October 1895, Kojong's wife, Queen Min, was assassinated by the Japanese, and King Kojong fled to the Russian legation in Seoul. The following year, Russia and Japan signed the Yamagata-Lobanov Agreement outlining their plans for the Korean peninsula. It was in part this which led Kojong to agree for Joseon to participate in the fair in Paris, believing that it would strengthen the relationship between France and Korea. In 1897, Kojong wrote to the French president asking for military assistance if and when needed. The establishment of the Korean pavilion in Paris differed significantly from that of Chicago, as it was entirely planned, funded and built by the French. Charles Roulina, the Consul General of Korea in Paris, approached the wealthy industrialist Count Auguste Mimorel IV to undertake the project. Motivated by the potential for lucrative mining concessions on the Korean peninsula, Mimorel agreed. The Korean exhibits were housed in a traditional-looking building designed by the French architect Eugène Ferré, who based the design on the throne hall in Gyeongbokgung Palace. The pavilion was a small wooden structure with a two-tiered tiled roof and wooden lattice windows lined with paper. Its exotic appearance captured the attention of visitors, as noted in the exposition catalogue. The exhibits were diverse, including contemporary manufactured items, antique objects, and books, many donated by the Joseon royal family. Other objects belonged to French individuals who had spent time in Seoul. The pavilion signaled an important departure from the Korea-led displays in Chicago. The French scholar Maurice Courant, who by then had already published several volumes on Korea, wrote positively of the Korean pavilion and the way in which it highlighted what he argued to be the refined and delicate nature of the Korean civilization, not to mention the advanced and a diverse nature of the artworks. The Korean pavilion was a success overall, as it attracted positive attention, received more than 50,000 visitors, and was presented with the grand prize: 3 gold medals, 10 silver medals, 5 bronze medals, and 3 honorable mentions. Sadly, Joseon's participation in the Paris Exposition was to be its last as an independent nation. As mentioned earlier, the Ulsa Treaty was signed in 1905 and deprived Korea of its sovereign power, as it gave the Japanese Foreign Office full authority over all aspects of Korea's relations with foreign nations. It was in this context that Korea came to be included in the Japan-British Exposition, which opened in White City in London in 1910. The exhibition was intended to further the alliance between the two countries in terms of expanding political friendships, trade, and commerce. Displays from Japan's occupied territories were housed in a building titled Palace of the Orient. It was here that the section devoted to Korea was located. Named the Korean Pavilion, it displayed ceramics, lacquerwares, and other artworks, as well as photographs of Korea. When the exhibition ended, several of the objects were donated to the British Museum, and you can now see them on display in the Korea Foundation Gallery of Korean Art inside the museum. This lecture has examined Joseon Korea's participation in World's Fairs in the late 19th century. It is evident that King Gojong's decision to participate in such fairs formed part of the political environment of East Asia and Korea's volatile place within the region. The response to the Korean displays in America and France demonstrates that there was much interest in and certainly curiosity about Korea. In the next lecture, we will explore this further as we discuss the collecting of Korean art in America.